Great. Okay, call to order the Lowell City Council at 7 o'clock on September 6, 2022, regular meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Weathers, Councilor Murray, Councilor Stratus is absent.
We'll stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any requests for changes to the agenda by anyone? Public comments, anything? I guess. You can speak from there or stand either way. Halfway up. Okay.
Good answer.
My name's Paul Regan. I'm at 62 Easter. I know a few meetings ago I discussed how trashy the town was getting, and if we could do something about it. And I'm asking the mayor for a progress on that. Thank you.
I would turn that over to the city administrator if you want to comment now, or you want to bring it back to the next meeting.
I would prefer to bring it back to the next meeting so I can have information on whatever seems to be going on.
Anything else? Council comments. Okay, the first thing up is new business. Presentation of the water master plan and seismic resiliency and migration mitigation plan. Mr. Connell, you want to introduce that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. We have the city engineer, Matt Wadlington, here with us tonight. Come on up there. He has a presentation on the water master plan. My hope for tonight is to get some good questions from the council on the master plan for Matt to take back and incorporate into a final draft, which we will prepare and present to you for your second meeting this month. Afterwards, Matt will talk about the next steps in the process, what to start working on next and how to fund the plan. Matt, I'll go ahead and pull up the presentation and turn it over to you.
All right, thank you all. Again, my name is Matt Wadlington with Civil West Engineering. Been city's engineer for 5 or 6 years now. We have recently completed the water master plan. Say completed, although it's still in a draft form. So any comments that you have, we can address. Here, if you want to go to the next slide, the way a water master plan or any master plan generally works is we do a review of the existing system, look at growth rates of the city, review regulatory requirements, using growth projections and regulatory requirements. We determine what the future system needs are. And then comparing those future system needs back with the existing system, we identify deficiencies. And then with those deficiencies, we look at alternative solutions to solve those. And then of those alternatives, we recommend a project and then compile all those projects into a capital improvement plan. And so we'll just walk through these steps briefly, and at the end, I'm happy to entertain any questions, or along the way, feel free to interrupt. So the existing system review, the system really has kind of 4 parts. There's the raw water intake, which is located out in the reservoir just east of the covered bridge, east of the road down near where the original river channel would be. That was put in 1980, and it was the screen on it was replaced in 2005. The next item is the water treatment plant. It's a rapid sand filter. It's called a conventional treatment plant. This was originally constructed in 1969, thereabouts. It was most recently upgraded in 2001. In the normal operation of the plant can generate about 155 gallons per minute. And then you have water storage. These are the two tanks up on the top of the hill. An older 460,000 gallon concrete reservoir that was built around 1992, I think. And then a 440,000 gallon steel, glass fused steel reservoir that was completed in 2012. So between the two of those, there's about 900,000 gallons of storage. And then the water distribution system is a mishmash of different size pipes, different types of pipes. About a quarter of the system is 6-inch asbestos cement pipe dating from the 1960s. So then moving on to the growth projections, the existing population in the 2020 census had the city of Lowell at a population of 1,196. We added to that based on the recent subdivisions that have been built. So we added 94 people to that. So we have a current modified existing population of 1,290. The average annual growth rate, which was adopted by the county for the city of Lowell, was for the next 32 years to grow at a 0.8%. Then after that at a 0.7%. So using those growth rates, we estimate the population at the end of the planning period, which is the year 2045. So we're going out about 23 years. Generally, we go about 20 years, but we'll round it to a nice even number, is 1,560 people. Regulatory requirements, we looked at all the Oregon administrative rules, the 333-061, which deals with drinking water. In addition to that, there's the 1996 Safe Drinking Water Act from the EPA. Most of those rules are incorporated into the OAR, so really the OAR is the main body of requirements for a water system. So future system needs. So we looked at the water demand, how much water is being used by the city on a per capita basis, and then projected that based on the anticipated population at the end of the planning period, and came up with an average day demand of 111 gallons per minute, or 160,000 gallons per day. The maximum day demand is about twice that, 321,000 gallons a day, or on average of 222 gallons per minute. And then the peak hour demand was 557 gallons per minute. When we're looking at a treatment plant, we would target being able to produce the maximum day demand in a 12-hour shift. And so our target production rate is 444 gallons per minute. The storage requirements, you have three main categories of storage. You have fire suppression, which is sized at 3,500 gallons per minute for 3 hours, which is based on a city center, schools and businesses. We would then have emergency storage, which would provide water to the city in case of power outages or line breaks that the city is unable to operate the plant. And we size that for 3 days of the average day demand. And then equalization storage, which is sized at 20% of the maximum day demand. And what that does is just as there's more usage first thing in the morning and in the evenings, and so that just balances out that demand cycle. So adding those three up, we have a total storage required of 1.175 million gallons, almost 1.2 million gallons. So that's what we will need by the end of the planning. So the deficiencies, so we can, I'm sure you can see the current water treatment plant can produce water at a rate of 155 gallons per minute. We recommend that a water treatment plant be able to treat up to a rate of 444 gallons per minute. So there's quite a bit of distance between those two numbers. Just as a point of interest, the water right that you have to pull from the reservoir is 450 gallons per minute. So that 450 gallons per minute seems like a reasonable target to assume for water treatment. Water storage, we just mentioned we'll need almost 1.2 million gallons. Currently, you have 900,000 gallons between the two tanks. The existing 460,000 gallon reservoir, the concrete reservoir, is showing signs of aging. There are cracks noticed on it, and we're not comfortable using that for a build out for a 20-year planning supply. So really what the city has in looking forward is just the 440,000 gallon reservoir, and so we'll need some additional storage capacity. Also with that storage capacity, the urban growth boundary of the city is mostly on the east side of the city, up on the hill at an elevation that cannot currently be served by the reservoirs. So if there's going to be a new reservoir, we recommend that it be at a higher elevation that can then feed that portion of the city and future development in that area. And then water distribution, like I mentioned in the beginning, there's quite a bit of AC, asbestos cement pipe that's close to 60 years old. There have been studies done that between 60 and 80 years, that pipe starts to fail more often, and so we're going to see more line breaks. And so we're gonna talk about getting on a cycle to kind of replace the pipe over the next planning period. So the proposed solutions, we looked at the treatment plant. It needs SCADA supervisory control and data acquisition improvements to help operate the plant. That's kind of an immediate need that has come up recently. It was something that was on our radar, but I think it had a kind of some catastrophic failures recently, and so they're having to limp that through to get it running and maintain water production. We looked at rehabilitating the existing plant. That's at a cost of about $700,000. The problem with that is it reuses the 50-year-old structure, and that's about the useful life of the structure. So we're not real keen on reusing that structure. Two options are to create new plants as a new conventional plant, which would be kind of similar to what you have, kind of a sand filter plant, or a membrane plant that is uses a very fine membrane and just filters out everything out of the water. The water source that you have is actually pretty conducive to using a membrane. It's not really turbid. So it might be a good situation for a membrane. I put an asterisk on the slide here that before determining which plant you would want to go with, we would recommend doing some pilot studies and seeing what would make the best water. Water storage, we looked at a couple different options. One is a new 1.5 million gallon reservoir. You'll notice these numbers are a little bit bigger. The useful life of a reservoir is close to 80 years for the new glass fused to steel tanks, and so we want to look a little bit further out, and not just at the 20-year period, because it'll be outdated well before the useful life of the reservoir is up. So we looked at an option of doing a 1.5 million gallon reservoir and 1.1 million gallon reservoir. And those coupled with the existing 440,000 gallon reservoir would would get you either almost 2 million or 1.5 million gallons. With the reservoir would be a booster station to get the water up to the reservoir. That booster station would be located either near the existing reservoirs or maybe on the north side of town. And it's really, it can go anywhere as long as it has power and a decent sized water line to it, which most of them would have. Water distribution, we looked at replacing a lot of the AC pipe with PVC or HDPE. One of the nice things about HDPE pipe is it is seismically resilient. There's an earthquake, it shakes the ground. The HDPE pipe is not likely to burst, whereas PVC might be more likely. Metal pipe is going to be highly likely, and the AC pipe that you have throughout the system is just going to shatter. So, that's part of the SRAMP, or the seismic resiliency and mitigation plan, is replacing some of those pipes with a more resilient pipe material. And lastly, in the distribution area, there are a number of areas in the city that don't have fire hydrant coverage that's required in order to be within 500 feet or 100 feet of each other. So we mapped out every hydrant and identified where the areas were that are deficient in fire hydrants, and had a project for putting in more hydrants. So then this is kind of just a rehash, but a recommended project. We recommend to construct a new membrane plant. Again, I would urge the city to look into doing a pilot study to determine if that's really the right technology for the city. Water storage, recommending we put a new 1.1 million gallon reservoir at a high elevation, so that it can serve the UGB area and a booster station. And then the water distribution is really just get on a cycle of replacing that AC pipe. The SRAMP, the seismic resilience mitigation plan, has a timeline associated with it of 50 years to get everything resilient within a 50-year schedule. So as we're looking to replace that pipe, we would do it over a 50-year period and do it, and maybe do a project every 4 or 5 years just to get economy of scale of the project. And then fire hydrant improvements to the tune of $387,000. Then we take those, kind of just put it in a capital improvement plan with the treatment plant, the SCADA, and the reservoir being the priority 1 projects. Those should be completed within the next 10 years. And I would really urge, at least on the treatment plant, that it be done within the next 5, just because of how deficient it is and really unable to keep up with the demand now. Priority 2 projects are mostly the seismic and safety projects. Those would be done within a 50-year period. That would be the fire hydrant installations and the replacing water lines. We call it a SRAMP backbone, and that would be, taking special notice of the most important lines, which are the ones from the water treatment plant to the reservoir, and then from the reservoir to City Hall, or wherever an emergency gathering place would be. People might come and fill up water jugs. A seismic event left areas of the city without water. And then priority 3 are just doing some improvements on the raw water intake out of the reservoir, and that would just be to put an airburst screen cleaning system on there so that you get less debris or less debris hung up on the screen. opens it up and just makes the water that you're pulling in cleaner. That's kind of the progression of what we looked at, how we got to the capital improvement plan, and now I'm happy to answer any questions.
So the PSU population estimates. Lowell's kind of unique because the city limits and this UGB are the same. It's not normal in Lincoln County around there, so the chances of us getting a UGB extension or this year. So my question is, we added to the PSU estimate, but we went through this a few years back and it was very contentious about this for different reasons. But was the buildable land taken into consideration, or are you applying a growth rate that's been determined and given by people that do those projections?
Yeah, the latter. We determined the growth rate based on the county number that was based on the PSU forecasts. Because you know, one of the main purposes of a master plan is to kind of steer the city and doing projects, and ultimately the city is going to be looking for funding for these projects. The funding agencies are really kind of sticklers about making sure that you follow that PSU growth projection and don't make claims that you know, it can't back up.
Well, that's why I was surprised that you could just, not arbitrarily, but add 94 count to that, because I've never seen it done and people would have a heart attack the last time we did this if you suggested that. So
Yeah.
how does that make it legit? Because PSU is gonna trump
Well,
whatever
we feel it's legit, and I think
You wouldn't do it otherwise.
I push this through, and the funding agencies would approve that because it's already a kind of a done deal. You know, those houses are built. People are
for
living in them
today.
For today, yeah.
But then you're
And so-
applying the rate on this number that's higher. And you don't think that that's problematic?
I think that that'll pass. But I mean, obviously, one of the next steps is to send this through to the state and have them review this plan. And they may comment on that, and we'll have to.
Well, we
to
might
address
be
that.
small enough to even care, but again, we're unique in that we've got some flat ground and then we've got some pretty steep hillsides that I don't know whether our development code supports. All the land within the UGB has been buildable. Actually, like, know some of that too, but there's issues about that. And that how much water storage do we need up high if you can't build up to capacity based on just the acreage?
We did look at that a little bit in terms of that water storage up high. One of the problems about making it much smaller is that you still have to have fire flow for that area. And that's the lion's share of that demand, or that need, is that fire flow. And if you don't have the fire flow in that upper storage, then you're relying on storage in a lower level with bigger booster station to increase fire flow to the upper level. So in terms of the reservoir, we felt it was prudent to put a large reservoir up high rather than trying to split it apart, put a smaller one high and another medium-sized one lower, just because I think that would be more expensive to build too. I see what you're saying, and I think I misspoke earlier. Like I said that the UGB on that side of the city was bigger. It's the same as the city. I think that's what I mean. That's the buildable area.
I kind of really close to saying, this has been a dormant town for 15 years, whatever. And we're taking up right now the space for residential developments on the more flat areas. We don't, what's west of here, I don't see being developed by those people quickly, because they've been looking at the SDC charges that would be happen. There'd have to be someone with money to come in and do that, but I just don't see those owners doing that. And, like I say, like you say, the buildable ground that we're on, we're starting to, be almost, maxed out. We're building up the hillside, but you see more buildings coming back down into the city. And it's not really going up higher on them. Even, I think even if they could for the water, it's just, the issue with actually building up there. So I think it sounds like those are nice numbers to say we're growing down and everything, but, I think we're gonna reach a point probably in the next 2 or 3 years that, it's going to be the city lots down and stuff like that. It's not going to be like you look at some of these big cities where we have a skyline of houses. I just don't feel that.
But aren't there more going up above the new development? Across from that, I shouldn't have been.
But I think those have already been added in.
I thought that they couldn't go up higher without doing something major. Get the water up higher.
So the subdivision, the Crestview on the very north side of town. I know that stopped where it did because that's the elevation that the water is. I think the subdivision right up on Fourth is getting close to that high elevation, although I think those lots are only to serve. Nothing about.
Yeah, they have a second.
So isn't there something that can be done now that we would have the capacity if we did? I should be smarter about this, but I thought that they would have to put in some kind of special pumps or something extra in order to develop higher, which means if they're willing to do that, they're going to develop higher and add more to our. So there is capacity up there if they choose to do that. Am I right?
Yeah, I would.
That's right. So that's still a possibility. I mean, they might spend money to do it. All right, I think Jeremy you explained to me that was a combination of us and them, but we would have to go in.
I can't recall all this.
One of the things that Jeremy kind of alluded to in the introduction was kind of the next steps following a water master plan would be an analysis of the SDCs that we were talking about. And those SDCs are paid for as new homes are developed. And those would go, you would have a water SDC that would pay for growth needed to the water system to accommodate those new houses. And so that pump station that would boost the water up to that elevation would be fully eligible for SDC funding.
Okay,
So wouldn't the SDCs be accumulated on all development, not just those things?
yeah. But my point is, it can be done there. And so we do have that possibility. I agree. I think we're gonna hit that limit within the city limits at some point, but there's still, if they decide to, that could happen. Which is gonna add more to, more.
I didn't really work on the page, but the unaccounted water, talk about that, because that's
27%. Yeah.
Yeah, so unaccounted water, it's a lot of times called water loss, but it's not necessarily all water loss. Some of it is, there's a leaky pipe, you lose water, and that's part of it. Part of it is meter inaccuracies. Everyone's meter in town. I know you guys have been doing meter replacements, but as meters get old, they generally read low. And so a meter that's 20 years old can be expected to be reading 75 or 80% of the actual water usage. And so that's classified as lost water, certainly lost revenue. And then there's also just inaccuracies in the meters of how much water is being produced. There are some authorized but unaccounted for water uses, like fire hydrant flushing. Or any water services that aren't metered. I think pretty much everything in the city is metered at this point, is that right? Yeah, so all those things combined are water loss. Generally, we'd like to see it less than 18% in that mid-teens.
So my question is about, and you talked about something to do for there, but given this new era we're in, and water is not, we're not gonna all have green lawns. That's what's coming down the pike. We're not gonna, we may not be at that water usage level per household that we are now because of regulations are gonna prevent that. I'm wondering, just with this unaccounted for usage. And I'm thinking of CIP and knowing that there's gonna be billions of dollars come flowing in, and I would think that conservation would be a huge issue. Rather than just capacity generation. So that's what I'm wondering, is there anything in your plan that could address that? That would make us, I mean, you need to say, well, gee, we're more likely to get this money because we're doing poorly, but still, if there's unaccounted water, then we should save that first before we try and start treating a bunch of people. Especially if it's just. So I'm just trying to get us positioned for all this
right.
cuckoo bucks as it's coming down the pike.
I can make a comment on that, Don. So the data that we supplied to Civil West, the previous 5 years, remember we started this last year. So before we got on the swing in the meter rehab, and then since the data that I sent, we have fixed 3 significant water leaks, 4 to count one this week. So our most current numbers right now are between 15 and 18, which is where we want it, but you want to be less than 10. But the meter change-out program, I told you guys I do it in your report, it's going to be astonishing to know. And we pulled a meter out of the school that was 64 years old, and their usage, I mean, it's not even close.
So that's gonna take that.
That is going to bring that water loss number, the percentage. I mean, 2 years ago we had 31%. You know, but we had a lot more line flushing. We had fire before we had good communication with the fire department. You know, when they use water sampling, we got reduced monitoring some sampling. So we sample the end of the distribution line where there's no meter. So you do a flush for 15 minutes every month. You know, that's 600-800 gallons. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it adds up. And then you do that 5-6 times a month. So there's a lot of things that we've changed, and side by side with this, which I'll talk about. We also did a water management conservation plan. That's one thing you were asking. And the biggest focus around that is exactly what you said. You know, what can you do to reduce your usage of your household? But the projected flow numbers that we have in there is what we're projecting to be the population. So if we kept exactly what we're doing now with people's usage, you know, not count the water loss stuff, but the usage now and then moving forward.
But isn't it in the water usage?
It does show.
So the water usage projected ought to come down, even though we've increased EDUs because of this unaccounted loss that you're reducing, which is fabulous.
Well, not yes and no, but I mean, the water loss is gonna make that usage go down, you know, by fixing leaks in pipes. But putting new meters in that are more accurate is gonna help the water revenue side, but it's still gonna be using the same.
Right, still have to treat water, yeah. But I'm just thinking that may curb that a bit, because I just don't think it's like the old days when, you know, you got a whole subdivision of 5,000 square foot lots with mini mansions on them and green lawns everywhere. I think those days are gone. So when we're projecting based on current practices, don't you think that's gonna change over time?
It may, you know, we've done quite a few rate studies for different cities, and one of the biggest things you can do to sort of curtail people's usage of water is to raise the water rate. And so you do that, people use less water because it's more expensive, but after 2 or 3 years, it starts creeping back up and they get back to that kind of same usage. So I would say if you're gonna do kind of wholesale changes to the city code, then discourage green golf course lawns, then that would be a way to kind of push that. But otherwise, what we found is that people tend to migrate back to the kind of water usage that they've always used.
I saw on your funding, a lot of big numbers, but, there's activities going around in this county. First of all, put in some big changes to an airport, and they have I think a 10% match with, I think the state picking up 5 of that 10%. Would we be looking at that total number, or are there grants, that other cities are getting at this point, or?
Yeah, I can almost guarantee that you would not be looking at the total number, but I can't tell you what number you would be looking at. One of the next steps that I would recommend that we go to after this is approved is go to the state funding agencies and sit down with them. They do
I like that one stop.
a meeting,
Yeah.
one stop where you kind of get everybody in the room together and
I
say,
looked at that too.
these are our needs, what can you do to help? And with a lot of the ARPA funds that are coming around now, and they're being distributed through the standard state funding agency programs, those funding agency programs are you start seeing grants of 25, 30, 40% of the project. So
That's
still a lot of money.
That's gonna be a hard for a lot of residents to buy. We're gonna have more troubles on that. Honestly. And I saw there $30 increase on some item there.
Yeah, and a lot of the
That was the low end of all your numbers for increasing and things like that.
no, I know they're big numbers and they're likely to get bigger the further out you go.
I know Colbert went through this where they delayed. And they got hit with some monster numbers, so they're still, I think, still digging out of what.
Yeah, and when we're landlocked, I mean, we don't have the ability to put in a flat subdivision and leverage fixed costs, we just don't have that ability here. So. we're small, but that makes that percentage, a greater hit to us. Because, I mean, we don't really have golf lawns around here. We really do.
Because if you look in the past in this town, they went through moratorium from time to time as the water was limited. Where, one house could be built, 2 houses, something like that per year to be added on. And so.
But I moved here at 99.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that's could be in our future if we don't do anything. I just don't know.
Well, like I said, the city's water treatment plant right now can produce 155 gallons per minute. Your maximum day, it is already over that. So there have been days, I think Max, you were telling us a couple months or last month, you had to run the water treatment plant for 4 or 5 days straight without turning it off. You still with that. Yeah, and so that's not really sustainable. It's gonna lead to even more premature failure.
I'm not saying no, the winter on to say, but I'm saying that it's a big loss to see, and also it's grows.
They are big numbers, and one of the things we do is work pretty closely with cities to try and maximize your grant funding. And so we have a pretty good relationship with the funding agencies and a pretty good handle on those programs. And so we'll work hand in hand with the city to do everything we can to maximize those, and depending on what's out there, that may kind of structure what projects you want to take down and when. Maybe maybe the reservoir is not a 1.1 million. We say, okay, what we really need is just 600,000 and do that. We'll recognize that if growth happens in 20 years, we'll do another 400,000. Those are all options.
Matt, I have a question for you. We're in the midst of a wastewater treatment plan. And to the mayor's point, you know, we have needs here with the water plant. We're going to have needs with the wastewater plant. They're two separate plants, but it has the same customer base. And we're going to, even with just the water improvements that we need, we're going to potentially ask the customers to take on a pretty big burden. So with what you're seeing with the wastewater plant, is it going to be as urgent as the water treatment plant? Can we do the water stuff first, and then once we pay off whatever loans or those fall off, start working on some wastewater stuff?
It's in the really early stages, so I can't totally answer that, but I think there are gonna be some projects in the wastewater side that are as urgent as the water treatment, but it may not be a wholesale replace everything at once. And may be able to spread out more. I'm really not there yet, to be able to.
That's gonna be driven by state and federal regulation changes and updates, requirements, more so than anything else.
Well, yeah, current standards, you know, as well. I mean, the wastewater treatment plant has been struggling to meet the current permit, so it's not even as much a future regulation as it is just meeting today's regulations. But we will take into account anticipated future.
Anything else, anybody?
If anybody has any comments, forward them to me in advance of the next meeting this month. I'll get it to Matt and we can incorporate that in the final draft.
I got one more. So later on, we're getting another technical assistance grant for the water facilities plan. How does that water facilities plan tie in with this water master plan?
It's the same.
Same thing.
Okay,
So I think that technical assistance grant was,
because it did look, I hate to read things on a computer because then I can't flip pages and compare. But it was duplicative and I thought I was having a memory issue here, but
I think the city was granted a technical assistance grant for the water master plan and the wastewater and another one for the wastewater
Oh,
facility.
that's it, and it's 20,000.
And so then they're each 20,000.
Yeah. That's what
right, but what the thing that we've got going tonight is thing that we just presented is water master plan and seismic upgrade. Again, that sounds like 3 different plans to me. You're saying it's just 2.
It's really kind of under the umbrella of just one. It's really just it's all a water master plan, and so in those technical assistance grants, they'll hand out money for that one planning effort. It would include the three separate plans.
So that's 2, we got 2 grants.
Correct.
But we've already got the water master plan, and you've got the draft form, you can start on wastewater, so you can explain. Certainly, catch it.
One thing to clarify, there were kind of 3 plans. There's a water master plan, the seismic resilience and mitigation plan, which is really just a chapter within the water master plan. And then there's the water management and conservation plan that was done by a different group that kind of just goes along with the water master plan, but it's its own document. And that is probably even a little bit further along than the water master plan. I think they're also in the final draft stage of that.
So it's one plan with 3 pieces, and number 8 under new business, that 20,000 is going to help pay for the work that Matt has done for the one plan with the 3 pieces.
So we're already, that you just presented.
Right.
Okay, isn't that backwards? Don't we get the,
That's-
don't we get the grant first and then we apply it to the project? Did we not go for a grant to start this project?
It's only open, I think the grant window for that came after the project had started, so we applied, helped the city apply for that grant after the project was already started. But they're willing to provide the grant even though the project's already been done. Yes.
When did you start this project? Did we just stop?
Like about 18 months.
Yeah, it was last summer. I think it was July of last year, because it was starting with this week.
One thing you had a seismic, and I understand the pipes, all them breaking, but is their plant salvageable in any way? I know there was things that you put in there that we could change this to a little bit if they there, but bottom line, we need to replace the whole plant. So, seismic, is there any way that we can use the current plant with those upgrades, or is it gonna be more expensive to try to bring it up to seismic, by build a new plant?
Yeah, I think you could. Bring it up to seismic code. But I still think that it wouldn't have a life expectancy. You'd be dealing with something that was already.
And no easy else. Anything else for anything? Thank you,
Okay.
Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me down, and look forward to working on the wastewater project. Helping out with funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Next up is Ron Roth with the open burning ordinance. I'll be on to introduce that. We've got
What page is that on?
council person step down, so I'll slowly.
I'll cycle to the. Go ahead, yeah.
Like page 197.
Page 197. Yeah. 'cause it's-
Need to wait until Councilor Murray's back, or do you need a?
You come up and have a seat there, Ron. Go ahead.
All right, this is the follow-up on the March presentation that Chief Rod gave you about changing ordinance related to the city's outdoors burning regulations. Chief Rod prepared an attachment with a markup of our current open burning ordinance, which is in your packet. What I'm asking for after Chief Rod's presentation tonight is if you'd like to move forward with incorporating his recommendations into an ordinance to amend our municipal code. If so, I'll get working on that with the goal of putting a first reading on your agenda later this month. And I'll turn it over to you, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor and council members, long drive, I haven't met everybody, so fire chief here at Lowell Fire. Our fire district covers the city of Lowell as well as Fall Creek and Unity. So it expands outside of city limits. Since I've been here, we've had 2 different burn ordinances for the fire districts. We've had the city ordinance, and then we've had the county one, which covers basically all of Lane County. There are cities that have different ordinances from what the county has, but for the most part, all the county places have the same burn ordinance. So I did provide a little feedback on the ordinance that you currently have on possible changes. Then I also presented you guys with another form that's going to be going out to our entire fire district. And you'll be able to see that they're pretty much the same. Right now, I know that some of our concerns were the amount of smoke we put up, or how many people actually burn in city limits. And with this, there adds a little bit of restrictions. So it's going to restrict their pile sizes, which is going to restrict hopefully to restrict the possibility of fire getting out of control. But it also is probably going to limit a lot of our households from being able to actually burn because they're not going to have enough open space to have a fire. We have in here that there needs to be like a 25-foot clearance from a structure, as well as at least 15 feet away from a burnable fence. So a wire fence is not a concern, but a wooden fence, a plastic fence, anything that can catch fire and spread is our concern. So with those limiting factors, I think we're still limiting to a degree how many people can still burn within the city limits. So we're not going to smoke up the entire city with everybody being able to burn. So a lot of this is really just to bring the 2 together so that we're not, okay, we're in the city and it's November where the rest of the county can burn, but the city can't. We have somebody that's next door neighbor is burning because they're county, but their next door neighbors in city limits and they can't burn, and it causes everybody a little bit. I do know that in the past, the reasoning behind making the changes, I can tell you that while the choice was made for good reasons, it's not practical, or our smoke is not creating issues for other cities around us. It doesn't mean that somebody can't take advantage of this and cause issues for the city limits, but I don't really foresee that happening with what we have, with minimizing the pile sizes, making sure that they have so many feet from their house, so many feet from a fence. Once again, we're not going to have everybody in the city that's actually going to be able to burn. It also just lists out a few other things that bring it more in line with the county. No burn barrels. You can do weed abatement, but you can't do cut grass. You can't do piles of leaves. It still stays with those standards. So it's not allowing anybody to do anything differently other than really the burn dates. Right now, your burn dates, I believe, are the month of October. And then again it ends in October, then starts again in March and goes till June. So while it does maybe add a little more smoke in the October, November, December, it's also wetter and it's not going to allow the fires to spread and get out of control. That's one of the reasons why I'm also looking at bringing them closer together, is it allows us to get rid of the debris possibly sooner in smaller piles throughout the year, as opposed to waiting till that one day when they can burn, and next thing you know, we have fires getting out. So it's kind of what we covered last time, and then just want to recap it again for you and answer any questions you may have. Anybody?
I like it. I think it brings it back to common sense instead of. I always wondered whether the other thing in conjunction with the, pile, which is horrible to administer and stuff. We generally have pretty good, nice breezes here to disperse stuff generally away from, the local population. So.
And this will we're still going to be the ones that are going out and following the regulations. I keep in contact. If somebody's doing something wrong, I make contact with Max. We keep track of those. If it happens multiple times, we reach out to El Rapa. None of that's going to change. It's actually, once again, we're restricting it even more. So we may have a few more issues in the very beginning as we're re-educating and just getting people out of smaller piles and making sure they're doing it appropriately.
Because people probably build them up real high because they only got that one shot in October until forever. So I think it's going to spread it out actually.
Right. And, you know, we've been putting together firewise programs through our community. It's just gonna help things be smoother and more intact, making our community more fire appropriate. I think there are things.
Volunteer fire people, like yourself, or the enforcement people, who goes out. You know, like a couple of boats that are or anything like that, so it makes it easier when you have one code to work with the people with. And also, we had a green waste program for a while. And that became expensive and has been discontinued, so where the people could carry it off and versus and dump it on the city, that's no longer there, so we don't want it accumulating and becoming a fire hazard to itself, so I agree, it's time.
One thing to keep in mind with that, when you bring up us enforcing it, I'm gonna be out enforcing the rules, but I can't fine. And that would still come back to the city, which I believe would be, in this case, it actually goes through El Rapa. So if you make a change, it goes to El Rapa, and El Rapa recognizes that. And if we write to them, hey, we're having violations, El Rapa is gonna be the one to do monetary enforcement. We'll be out doing education and enforcement. If it's a repeat offender, then we send a letter to El Rapa and get moving forward, or if somebody's blatantly doing something wrong, we'll pass it on faster. Just so you guys know, it's not necessarily a enforcement, you know, you're gonna see fines coming in.
It's not a difficult.
I knew that. I didn't.
Correct.
It's more educational.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, that sounds like dealing with somebody that doesn't have a smile, will be working on.
Yeah.
That's-
My question was on enforcement, so.
Okay. You know, and in reality, when it comes to enforcement. If I get a complaint, I'm gonna go out. I'm not gonna go out looking for it. I'm not gonna go out and say, oh, hey, you know, with this file. Yes, we know Rapper can definitely do that. But if I have people complaining, then we're gonna go out and inspect it, make sure it's right. If there's something wrong, we're gonna correct it. Or at least educate them. But we're not, it's not gonna be like we're gonna be going out and enforce constantly every time we see smoke, go out and check to make sure it's right. Which is gonna be based on complaint. And they do complain.
I would suggest that brings back the ordinance.
Yeah.
Update for a reason.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, thank you. The library. The colleague will introduce her.
So this is a presentation from Library Director Peggy O'Kane on some recommended policies for the library. As with the other two items, this is for discussion tonight with the goal of bringing something back at a later meeting to incorporate any feedback. And I'll zoom in here. I'll turn it over to you, Peggy.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for allowing me to present this information tonight. Let me begin by saying that 99% of it is boilerplate language that is recommended by the American Library Association, New Oregon Libraries Association. And that Penny pulled most of this together. I've gone through it and made some changes to it, but generally, this is the kind of information that most libraries have on file. I do want to point out a couple of areas that for your consideration, just so you know they're in here. The first is that there wasn't a vision statement, it was mission and goals. I'm not sure whether we want to create a vision statement, and if so, I think that's something that the library committee would be in on the drafting before presenting it. here.
Please do.
I just put
I
in,
put demand.
yes, I just put some boilerplate in that. So mission and goals. On the who may use the library. I have specified 3 zip code ranges, ours and the 2 adjacent, which do not have. Well, Dexter has a small volunteer library, but basically the underserved parts adjacent of the county adjacent to us. This will help in the future in state funds, because the state library plan includes providing service everywhere. And so if we say, hey, we're doing more than our fair share, that will help us in future grant writing. And please interrupt me as we go through.
Okay, that second line in that maze, it says, library serves the Lowell community as well as residents of surrounding. City of Lowell property taxes fees, it's just property taxes, there's no fees involved in this, right? So that should just say
Yeah.
property taxes. Offset cost of library tax.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was an oversight on my part. In many jurisdictions, Eugene being the biggest example around here, if you don't, I mean, it depends on what side of the street you're on, because there's city lines go down some of the streets. If you're on the wrong side of the street, you have to pay to get a library. So fees do come into it sometimes. But so far, that's not something we're thinking about.
This is what I mean.
Can I ask a question about that? So yeah, that's one of the things I was most interested about, frankly, because the old library, I work quite often filling in for the former city clerk and everybody else. And a majority of the people that use the library, not counting the little kids who get on their computers, were residents outside of Lowell. And since I am now a Lowell resident and pay taxes, I lived in Springfield for 21 years. And if I wanted to use the Eugene library, it's called, sure most of you know this, an exuberant amount of money to get a card there if you're not a Eugene resident, and vice versa if you live in Eugene Springfield library. So I think that's something that maybe we should look at again, or maybe down the road. I think it should only be the 97452 zip code, the people whose property taxes paid for the improvements and the usage of it. On the other hand, the nice side of me is like, well, you know, a lot of the people, when I was in there, were outside. I mean, I know exactly where they live. They're not paying property taxes. And those are the people who still come to this library. You know, the people who for the last 3 years have been asking that. So I definitely think that's something maybe the library committee be bringing up, but I think there should be some kind of fee associated. I don't think it should be exuberant like Eugene's fee was, but and really think about a library, a small portion of the city taxes, which is a part of what pays for it, but I don't know, I'm all for the community library, I totally get that, but you know, everybody's fair share.
You get the River Road aspect where people want city services, but they don't want to pay for
They
it
don't
because
want to
they're
pay
right across the street and everything looks urban, and why don't I get everything? And then the people inside the city think because we're paying for it. Wow. Yeah, that's so much.
Much of our taxes are paying. I mean, obviously, we just put all this. I mean,
Because
just
there's rough calculations, and when I'm in the office tomorrow, I don't know off the top of my head. I can do some rough
I'm just
calculations.
curious if it's costing. I mean, outside the bill, so I get. I don't know. I get what you're saying, Max, but I like it.
No, and that's what I said, I'm all for support with it. I know a lot of people from outside use it,
They'll never have a library out there,
well,
and they'll pay the exorbitant price to go use.
It's not, or the other solution is the library district that incorporates.
well, that's the other
Stuff,
thing.
and then you have, then you truly have a fee that everybody. can
Right,
afford, and you take
and-
it out of the general fund.
Right, and that would be a way. to win. But anyway, that's.
Anyway, just making it.
Let's just get it up.
Hey. Oh. See, there are lots of ways of looking at all of this. Under the library committee, I found out today that we have all of that defined in the municipal code, so I'm just gonna add a note there that says, see the municipal code, section 2.624, which defines who can be on the committee. I noted reading through that, that it doesn't say anything about age. If at all possible, I would like a high school aged person on the committee. It just opens us up to more diversity.
Well, if it doesn't say anything about age,
It doesn't,
yeah, then
so we're fine.
Does it say it has to be a Lowell resident?
Actually, it says of the 5, 3 have to be residents and 2 don't.
That's fine. We have one of our other committees, I think we had a parks, I think had a idea for having a young person on there, so. That shouldn't be a challenge.
Okay. Volunteers, this is still significantly a volunteer library. Previously, there was language that didn't let children volunteer. I suggest that we allow the children to be at least 11 years of age and that their parents co-sign their application. So that their parents also know that they're involved in the library. That,
Check it out, stuff like that.
yeah, checking out books, helping at children's activities. Over this coming summer, I've put in for the summer reading program the possibility of building a story walk, which is something that I would need, that teenage volunteers would be great to have help with. So that was part of my thinking.
How did you come up with 11? How did you come up with 11 years old?
It's a combination of reading and that if you say middle school, there are kids who are in 5th grade who are really ready. It was based on what a number of other libraries has done as well. It allows tweens to participate, but again, it's an arbitrary number.
We're shifting your hearing. My daughter's 11, so.
Not
We'll sign her up.
I think she already has.
yes.
So that's how we got to 11.
And that's how we got to 11.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I framed that nicely.
they're able to read.
Well, they're gonna be trained like anybody else, like at 11, to do all the things that you do.
Yeah,
Of course.
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Currently, we do not, I do not have records of any of the library volunteers having completed the city volunteer application. So we're going to have to make that happen and keep a way of tracking that. And that will initiate the background checks, etc. And because they will have done all of that paperwork, they will also need access to the personnel policies related to dealing with the public. Again, it's just if you do one, then you do the other, then you go for it. All right. Let's see. I think the rest of the volunteer information and the staff. Oh, I did add to the library staff that we will maintain a daily log, incident report log. frequently what happens with a patron who has issues is they have an issue on Tuesday and Wednesday, they're great on Thursday, Saturday, they've got another issue. And if the same person isn't there all of the time, they don't know that this is cumulative behavior. So we track that behavior so that it's doesn't stay forever, but it's a way for staff to know what's going on.
That question, actually.
Yeah.
What is our record, what is your vision of development extension policy? How long will we keep that?
I believe it's gonna be quarterly. And I haven't put in the specifics in the privacy policy about that, but I will be looking at that. Code of conduct is the huge catch-all for how we want people to behave in the library. Basically, it comes down to do unto others. Treat the material as for your own, treat each other with respect, treat the library with respect. One of the areas that people regularly bring up is what's a service animal? Who can, you know, can I bring in my pet boa constrictor because it makes me feel happy? So we need to get better at defining that. We also make sure that those animals are always under control and that it is the responsibility of the person to clean up after the pet. I don't want to ban animals from the library, but I want in
You
writing.
get the allergy thing. You get the allergy thing.
Yeah,
So isn't there some kind of certification they're supposed to have? Is there nothing nowadays? You could just call it what you want.
No, but by federal law, you can ask two questions. You can ask, is this an animal the help with a disability? If so, what is it trained to do? You don't have to ask them for a certification or any of that. If somebody brings in their pet goose and says it's trained to help me do X, Y, and Z, okay?
And so we can't have it.
But the law does say that it has to be under the person's control and it can't be disruptive.
No problem.
Right.
Oh, mercy, look at that.
But that's just, I mean, it's one of those things that does come up, and we may get complaints on both sides of the issue, because there is the allergy issue and there is but then lots of libraries have cats that live at the library. We're not gonna do that. So again, lots.
I thought about the dogs, that you're gonna get dogs with fleas in there. Fleas are gonna get in places, then they're gonna get the kids. Then we're gonna have to fumigate that place. That ain't pretty.
Actually, it's not fleas that we worry about in libraries as much as bed bugs.
Well, they can do it.
Oh.
Yeah, where those come from.
Crossed my mind.
Yeah, there are ways to mitigate and odors in books and things like that, but yeah. So basically the code of conduct is just the normal things. Some of it is already in the city code. The firearms, for instance, but again, I want to be able to point to it right here, right now. Because I have dealt with that issue and it's nice to have backup. All right. Moving on to the collection development policy. This is again 90% boilerplate language. I have once written a collection development policy that was 100 and some pages long, but it was for a huge research library on what you collect and what we don't collect down to the decimal points. We don't need that here. We may at some point have we may need to put specific things in here to say that, yes, we are buying faith-based fiction, that we are, and we're not buying Christian fiction, we're buying faith-based fiction because of the church state stuff. But for now, this is going to be plenty. The statements under intellectual freedom will all be, they're all linked to it. My master's thesis was on the creation of the freedom to read statement, which took place during the McCarthy period. Librarians went to jail during McCarthyism.
Wow, people.
So. Let's see, selection criteria is general guidelines, again, boilerplate. One thing I have is under the access, a little bit further down. This, the first one is children are not limited to the juvenile collection. We are having specific juvenile collections, but it's not my job to tell your child what they can read. It's your job to tell your child what they can read. I am in favor of if they can physically pick the book up and carry it. Let's encourage them, not discourage them. But every parent has the right to say, not my kid, not that book. We will take requests for new materials from patrons, and we'll deal with those under the, yes, this fits our policy, no, this doesn't. And I'll have a form at the desk that people can fill out with either title author or topic to look at for our future acquisition.
How do you want it with that? Kid comes in and he's not supposed to be looking at this and that. You know, you got 11-year-old on the front desk. And whatever year-old goes over and picks up or whatever kind of book and starts looking at it. I just.
Well, assuming you're not gonna have pornography in here, I think.
Yeah,
I would just-
when we're
With the online stuff,
the online stuff is covered in a different
all
section.
that too.
But with the books, if a parent doesn't want their child, when the kid gets their library card, the parent is told, if there are things you don't want your child reading, you need to discuss that with your child.
That's not would be that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no way.
there's,
Yeah.
it was during that period when it was, you could wear masks, but you didn't have to wear masks to school. The classroom teachers couldn't track what parents said what about which kid. That's,
I just.
yeah,
Parents that they take something home, they don't want to read it, they do it back.
yeah. And we will also have access to electronic ebooks and audiobooks. Those are not selected. I will not be selecting those books. That's done by a consortium of libraries in the state. And it's a statewide.
Part of your subscription.
Yeah, it's an annual subscription. Okay. Counselor Weathers pointed out that I have the gift policy in 2 places. And I think I'm going to take it out of the collection development part and leave it in the gift specific part. I am adding that we're actually going to push the give your kid a book for their birthday and give a copy of it to the library. Remember your friend's love of gardening by giving a new gardening book to the library. It's a really simple way to grow the collection. You can pick a book off one of our lists that we have, or you can bring in a specific book, and we will put in so that, 20 years from now, Johnny can come in with his kid and give a book to the library and say, see, here's the one I gave. So it's a way of building ownership of the collection. We will have regular book sales. Obviously, even the small thing we did this year at Blackberry Jam was popular and successful. Yes.
I stipulate at least.
Hmm?
I absolutely see the value in book sales. I'm just confused by the including at least twice a year. Why not just say as needed or as supply allows, something like that.
Okay.
Such a great person.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I was thinking summer, winter, but that's plan does work. This year we could probably have one constantly. And
If
we probably
you
will.
come in, you have to take. Yeah.
Yes, before you can come into the library, you have to buy 5 books. But we will have a permanent space for books. But those will be cherry picked bestsellers, very popular things. All right. And request for reconsideration of library material. This is, not only do I not want my kid to read the book, I don't want anyone to read the book. There is a form that will be filled out. The form is only available in paper. That just adds one more step. It also means that some of the national organizations that are calling libraries across the country won't be able to fill out the form because they won't have access to it. You have to physically pick it up to fill it out. The form includes why, give me page numbers, or the scene of the movie, so that show that the person who's complaining, who is requesting it to be taken out, has actually looked at the material. Also, so they sign it, they hand it to me, I sign it. It goes through the process of, I make a decision which I present to the library committee. The library committee, if the library committee agrees and the patron agrees, it ends there. If the patron does not agree, then it comes here, and it could go to the state court system. We hope that doesn't happen, but the whole process is there. And I have done that process. All right, library card policy. Again, who can get a library card? Yes.
So I read the first section where you
Mhm.
stipulated zip codes,
Mhm.
and it spelled out that taxes subsidize the
Mhm.
price of the card. And so my library, we have a system where if you have any library card, we give you a free library account. Thought that's what you were going for there. But then here, it can just say that any resident gets a free library card. So those seem to be in conflict.
Okay. This through. Those 3 zip codes, anybody gets a card. We're going to be part of the Oregon passport system, which is lots of libraries just recognize each other's cards. And you're talking about UO's library system.
So I'm just wondering if we need to add a line in here that any resident of Lowell County with an existing library card is eligible for a free Lowell library card. Because then I think the 2 sections are in
Yeah. Yeah, I had actually, yeah, I had actually not caught that. It's when you write something yourself and go over and over and over. So I'm gonna change that to the zip codes for now. For the free cards and do the presenting another card for other residents.
If you had a question about IDs also,
Mhm.
my father-in-law actually was being brought this up. The state of Oregon no longer does address changes.
Mhm.
It's about the last one. They just don't do it till you get a readers, you can't get the sticker. So what if somebody doesn't meet like one of those criteria? I mean, obviously, she lives in my house, but you know, what if it's not you or somebody that goes on Lowell who's gonna come get body part? And I'm not saying Lowell, there's many people who have other
Right.
people live with them.
Yeah.
So like utility bills can be in the primary, be mine,
Mhm.
rent receipt, but other than that one.
Send her a postcard.
But it says utility, it doesn't say a letter,
It doesn't have a postmark piece of,
because that's the other thing, she has a piece of mail, I think.
it's
Oh, it is.
further
Oh,
down.
okay.
Yeah, it. Scroll, yeah. Imprint
Oh,
the
okay,
checks
perfect.
or
Okay.
postmark piece of
Okay.
mail. So, yes, in fact, you can mail yourself a card if you have nothing else.
Well, the problem is, I'm having trouble with the NCOA because I can't get the subdivision recognized, so I can't do imagination library books to those kids yet.
The new subdivision, it just got stamped Friday.
Oh, just Friday.
You
Oh, I
might-
checked Thursday.
You might
So
have
it's
to try
bad
to-
figures.
It literally just got.
Cause I try and check every other week.
And so Google Earth works now, and so does Google Maps. It
Okay.
just happened Friday.
But it's through the NCOA system, it's automatic.
I don't know
So
about
see,
that.
I can't do it myself, right? It's subject to that system, which is
If they have it in there yet. Yeah.
in imagination library. Books that we can-
It's the
in
dog.
community, it's the foundation. Education foundation.
There,
Put an article in the library, or in the newsletter with.
that's my fault. All right. So patrons under 17 who are not emancipated have to have parent guardian. General, again. Most of this stuff. I did add the temporary limit on titles in a specific subject area. So if the school assigns a research project, the first kid can't check out all the books on that topic. And I will be in touch with the schools, you know, if we have 6 books on science fair projects, no one kid is gonna get 6 books on
That would
science
be a
fair
smart
projects.
kid.
Yeah. I learned.
There is the internet.
We will, we'll send, if you place a book on hold, we'll send you an email notice when it's ready. You will have 10 days of note, to pick the book up and it goes to the next person. So the book doesn't sit on the shelf forever. Or it will go back into the collection. The loan periods are pretty much standard. The, we will not charge overdue fines, but we will have other fees for replacement of material, or for repair. And the payment of fees is a hardship. And the kid comes to me and says, I lost Dog Man and now I can't ever use the library again because I don't have $12 to buy it. I'll find a volunteer activity for them, something so that they're taking ownership of the fact that they've lost the material. But it doesn't make a permanent barrier to the use of the library. Okay. All right, so the gift policy, as it is written here, is the gift policy that we keep in. I'll make sure that everything is in the original gift policy, or is in the collection development gift policy is in this section. Okay.
I have a question here. It just came up the other day at school about, Jeremy, does the city have to declare items surplus and then get, council approval to dispose of those? Because that's what the school needs to do.
If it's over $5,000,
Aggregate or?
actually, I think it's over 5.
In the aggregate or?
Yes.
in bid? So. Is that what your experience was prior? Because what happens is people want stuff for free and then it usually goes to parents and stuff like that. And you can't do that because that's not
Right.
equitable. So that's why usually you have to find. It has to be declared surplus in the first place so that everybody knows, Jeremy knows, especially when it comes to grant money being spent on items.
Yeah. The workaround on that is a variation on the little free libraries where, take a book, leave a book. And you can set that up in the library itself with a take a book, leave a book if you can.
But those are done with private stuff. This is city money that's being purchased on resources.
But not all of the books have been purchased with city money.
Right.
What were you asking? I'm not sure.
In order to dispose of books, they generally have to go through some process of approval. That they're declared surplus and then they're authorized to be disposed of. And then state law says you have to go through a certain amount of effort to find the best price because tax money was used to pay for it, even if it's indirectly through your salary versus and especially if it's grant money. We got to get up with that.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do some research on that and come up with.
If it's declared surplus and your policy is it goes up for sale or goes in the little library thing, that's an approved process, but you made it sound like unilaterally, you're going to do that. I don't have an issue with you doing it and have an issue with a paid person doing that. And then they're being funneled off to someplace else.
I'm sorry, where are we?
We're in the gifts and donations about
The whole,
disposition and disposal.
yeah. All donations are accepted with the understanding that the library is unable to use the materials. They will be sold, donated to another public institution or discarded as the library sees fit.
And I didn't see in here with regard to weeding the collection, and sorry, I missed it, that the same rules would apply.
Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, don't get me wrong, I'm not asking for this to be a standing item on the council's agenda about declaring surplus of things. I'm just trying to
Okay,
not have you get tagged by your auditors as.
Would it be better if it said or discarded when not in concert with the collection development policy? So it's not about you making a
Right.
decision, it's about the existing policy that we use to decide what is added to the collection. This didn't actually.
yeah, and that opens up a whole other can of worms with the books that we're doing.
That's when it came up in my mind, because
and-
sometimes that works. And sometimes it doesn't.
So let me dig through, we have a contract with a company called Thrift Books that will take some, not nearly all of our excess books. And we will get a percentage of the sale price they get for them.
But at least it's a company, it's not, just
Right.
whoever standing
Yeah,
there that
yeah.
volunteers on
taking-
that day and it's.
And we're not taking
creating their
handle
own
of that.
collection.
So Yeah,
Selling
me-
them at their
let me-
garage sale next Saturday.
let me do some digging into that and I will get some clearer language on that. All right,
And that's where it was also clarified that you can buy faith-based stuff. You just have to honor whatever faith is there and people have access to. it.
right,
That's a misnomer that you can't buy, you know, a religious book. You can, you just have to.
yeah,
Somebody wants to take a religion, try that one too.
okay. Privacy policy is pretty much boilerplate from the state library. So basically, what we're saying here is that if somebody comes in and says, someone asks what you are, as an adult, are reading, we can't tell them. If a member of the police, FBI, whatever, comes in and says, tell me what this person's reading, we have to say, show me a warrant. And when they show me the warrant, then they can get the information. Under the current law, if the FBI comes in and says, I need to know what this person's reading, and I send them on their way, and the person comes in tomorrow, I can't tell them that the FBI was asking. That has died down a bit. There was a whole lot of that right after the law was published. Okay. Programming policy. Most usually boilerplate again. There are, you know, people want to say, what kind of program will you do a program on? I eventually would like to see at least 2 programs a month. One that is educational, one that is fun. And that's in addition to children's stuff, except for adults. That might include a writing group, it might include presentations by forest street people on things. It might include university people talking to us about research or whatnot. So all of that is open. And it's free to do that. Under meeting room policy, we could name that meeting room. It's wonderful that the library is being named Maggie Osgood. Keep in the back of your heads, if there is somebody who should get that meeting room, or we could follow the University of Oregon policy and get Mike to pay for it and name it for him. Yeah.
Don't under ask. Either.
So that's just all things to do. I know, I've asked Lon about this. I know that the number of how many people can be in the room, that room, or in the full library, or in the whole building, those have all been worked out by the architect and will be submitted, but I don't have those numbers yet.
You'll have to display it.
Mhm.
You'll have to display it.
Yeah, they'll be on display. It's a public forum. All opinions are welcome. All opinions are not facts. So, and there are legal requirements about if you're going to have a bunch of kids, how many adults to a child for a program. If a high school group wanted to use it, they would have to have an adult sponsor, because you've got to be an adult to reserve the space. And although library staff And volunteers will help move furniture and all of that stuff. It's not the responsibility of the people working in the library to set things up, except for library-based programs.
And I assume there's gonna be something on that rental agreement of after evaluation. they-
Yeah. Okay. And the use restrictions policy is how we determine whether or not someone is going to be declared ineligible, whether that's need to leave the library now, you can come back tomorrow, or it's you need to leave the library. You may not come back without whatever. Something from your parents saying behave, something, some sign that they understand the severity of their actions. And that's the reason for the incident log. Okay. Any questions on that? Internet use policy. Believe it or not everything on the internet is true. And while there will be filtering on all of the computers as required by federal law, it doesn't work well. When SIPA, the Child Internet Protection Act, first came out, I was in a school library and I had a couple of high school boys who made it their goal in life to get to sites they should not have been able to get to and report them to. And on the flip side of that, if you're a young adult woman who has just had your first physical and you know you're now supposed to do breast exams, but you don't remember how to do it, you can't watch a video of how to do it in the library because of the filter. So there is an exemption for adults. There will be an override password. Until the computer system is set up, I don't know exactly how that works. In my experience, those passwords get changed on a regular basis. But again, the internet was designed for people to get around it. That's just the way it is. When a parent says, okay, my kid can have a library card, they're also going to be told you're responsible for what your child does on the internet. We are not. Just like you're responsible for what they get to read. And we will, have some basic guidelines and basic common sense things that all children should know. And at some point we may have, if they're not already doing it at the high school or the middle school, we may have workshops on how to use the internet appropriately, tricks on how to set passwords that you can remember, but other people won't guess. And when you log into the computer, every time you turn the computer off, the public computer's on, there will be a statement that says, these are the law, these are the rules. The unacceptable uses of internet workstations, so that it's going to flash by you every time you log on. All right, time limits are set. They'll be enforced if they need to be. Printing will be, we've changed the wording of that one so that it is printing is available according to the latest schedule of how much to charge for printing that the city already has. And just the sort of look at it before you hit print, so that you're not printing an Amazon wish list, which will give you 50 pages of color text if you're not careful. We will have wireless internet. It will be open. there will be a public notices, bulletin boards, actually, on the shelving. Where I showed we can hang stuff. Those will serve in part as where we have pamphlets and flyers and notices of activities. Everything has to be dated. You can't put it up yourself. You have to give it to the library, to me or to one of the volunteers to get it put up, and things will be taken down. And finally, the children's safety and unintended child policy basically comes down to the library does not act in loco parentis. We're not responsible for the health and safety of your child if you've left them at the library, sent them to the library. And if one of the issues come up that the child needs care, you're not there and we can't get a hold of you, then our options include calling the police to take care of the child. And if we know who your next door neighbor is, we might call them or we call the police, but that is an option. So there we go.
The option isn't just to put them out on the parking lot.
Yeah, that's not,
That's fine.
unfortunately, that's not an option. Not even if we chain them to the fence. They have to be in somebody's custody and mine. Yes,
So I reviewed the university's library user rights and responsibilities. And I think this is a good mix of being more liberal in some places and more conservative in some places. So I'm really happy with it. The only typo that I just can't stand to not bring up under unacceptable uses of internet workstations. Roseburg Public Library is a great institution, an incredible institution.
Oh, yeah, I caught that too. And I know it was just,
yeah.
I do that all the time. I read what I know it should be.
Sure,
Mhm.
And
sure. That's why you have to have somebody else prove.
yeah,
I actually put Maggie Lowell on one of the proposals I was sending out to the company and said, wait, what? So, yes.
very good. Thank you.
If anybody has any comments, send it to me, and I'm also want to get the city attorney to review this prior to. I think I do.
Very good. A lot of work went into that.
Yeah.
Easement. Corps of Engineers.
I'll turn it over to the Public Works Director, Max Baker.
Mayor Bennett, council, just real quick, we have a easement that is up for renew. Actually, I think it's past renew at the end of the month. This took a little longer than expected. Lady from the real estate specialty division of US Army Corps reached out and was curious if we'd like to combine the 3 easements. I've already responded to her and told her that it just makes sense to go ahead and combine these, but I told her I would need to take it to council. It's just for informational purposes. So the 3 easements that are in question is the well that's in Orchard Park. So we have a well in Orchard Park. It's the one that's built in 96. The pipe comes up out of Orchard Park all the way down North Shore and comes into Parker. So we can use it at the plant. The other one is the actual property, real property where the water treatment plant is. We don't own the property at the water treatment. We're on forever lease there. And then the third one is the storm drainage easement, and that is part of the wetland mitigation from where Wetlow Street went in. So there's 4 culverts that come under, and then we have the 4 acres next to it. If there's no concerns or anything about it, I will go ahead and push through and let her continue on with it. There'll be more paper come back, and then obviously approval at the end of when she rewrites the new easement. So the maps are included if anybody had questions on, but it's just a little area. The well line specifically is only about 3 feet on each side of it. It's only 2 inch line.
How long before you have to do renewal?
I think they were 20-year leases. Yeah, so the one, the actual treatment facility is the one that's currently, I believe, up for renew. We did renew some other ones just because it just made sense. This was last year and didn't bring it to you guys, nothing changed. It was Summit Street. Obviously, there's homes that take access off of Summit and Pioneer, and then the other one was very small portion. of it. So those were just no brainers, they automatic renewed, we didn't make no changes, so. This one, the only reason it's a little bit different is we're just gonna combine it to one map and then one real description of an easement. So I think it makes it cleaner and easier for them. She took over for a lady that was doing it for a long time, so this, I think, just keeps it clean for people after me and after all of this. But if I hear no complaints or issues, I'll go ahead and drop an email to her. Okay, perfect. Any questions about it? Pretty self-explanatory. Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up. Air conditioning system.
Thank you, Mayor. Bear with me just one second. I'm gonna pull up a project budget summary so you can see where we're at. We're good. Right.
You anticipated.
Okay, now, there we go. All right, let's share this. Okay, all right. I just want to zoom in, things a little easier. Yeah. Okay, here's the budget that was in the adopted budget. This is the table that I prepared. You may recall from my recommended budget message. We had the construction costs of $491,314. We had the non-construction costs of $209,738 for a total project of $701,052. Okay. I have a spreadsheet here that puts it all together. We have the budget. I'm actually gonna just freeze these pages. We have the budget for these items. For these first few items, these are the base bids and the alternates. The estimated costs are the same because that's a contract amount. We have the design team fees that went up based on the increase for the architect. That's not going to change because that's the final contract. We have the IT contract with Elcon. I talked to them today and they said we're under with hardware and we'll know where we're going to be at with labor in September once they start installing stuff. They understand we have a budget and they're going to do their best to stick to it. But right now I have us the final costs equaling budget. Stacks, we put in $40,658 for stacks. We put in the order for Bodart for $26,634. This is for the asbestos testing. This was for legal fees. We had a small amount that was for the attorney to review the bid documents. Permits, SDC fees. This is for building permits, SDCs, all that good stuff. This is for the security contract that's already been approved. Opening a book collection. This was all grant funded. We're going to spend every $40,000 of that. The library technology, that was grant funded. We're going to spend all of that. Contingencies. Let's just look at where we're at before we go to contingencies. So we have 17,980 remaining. Because we were under budget by that much. Let's go to the change orders. Okay, these are approved. That is pending. We're under review. Approved. This is estimated. Approved. Already paid for that. I bought the water heater. Approved. New siding, Ridgeway paid for that. Exterior lighting, that's pending. That's how much we have to pay. That's contemplated. Roof insulation, I got a change order request today for $8,900 to do that. I talked to Kurt and he said it's not necessary for us to do roof insulation. I'm not gonna recommend it because we're already, see here, we're already so far over our contingency budget. HVAC, they said we could try to service the unit, but there's no guarantee that it is gonna work. That'll be about $2,300. I'm not recommending that. Parking lot striping, we took that out of the base bid. We're gonna, that's later on for us to do a direct contract. We're gonna get a little bit of a credit for that. I don't know what that is right now. And then we have the HVAC. We had a change order budget of 28,247. Right now, we're at 45,472. That really put us so close to the project budget that we are right now almost $800 to the good. That's how much we have left.
After the 18,000,
Correct.
so you figured the 18,000.
Correct.
The ones credit.
The pending things are, for everything I have numbers, that is included. So any questions about that project budget, as you start spending some money?
That's,
Okay.
but so we do have.
I'll also add, whenever I prepare the recommended budget, what was that? We're going to allocate some ARPA funding. I do estimate we're going to have, some ARPA funding remaining. We got more than what was originally budgeted too. So I think we're going to have some ARPA funding remaining to buy furniture and stuff, but I will be very, very, very tight with that. All right, so this item is for the HVAC unit. We knew going into this project that one of the units was at the end of its useful life, and one of them was close. It already failed. So I have an item on the agenda for a change order. We do have two ways to approach this. We can go through the change order process with the contractor, and their price is here. The plus to that is that they can go ahead and do the work, and you see the lead time in October. The other alternative would be for us to do a direct contract with the HVAC person. Since it's over $5,000, I would have to go out and get some quotes. I'd have to open it up for however long it takes to get those quotes and bring it back to you for approval. And that would push things out a little bit further. So that's the trade-off here. Do we want to spend the 18,000 right now with the contractor and get it done and try to stay on track as much as we can? Or do we want to take a pause and get some quotes from different companies to bring back as a separate? And I'll look to you for your direction.
I'm curious what the school district has done recently, because I know we put a couple in and, have you spoke with Jason at all?
I haven't, this came up just last week and I haven't
So
had time to go into it.
I kind of fell on the chair for these prices. And I could be, we might find if we go to some others and look at what their rates are. Things have gone up, but I happen to have an HVAC son. And I asked him some questions of what he thought. He thought it was extremely high. Harvey and Price is good, nothing wrong with that. They are a union shop, so there's a chance that's more of a chance that they're a little more expensive. It's a heat pump and an air handler, basically, is what we're buying. And when you look at what they're going to do, there's just some modification, and if you understood how that worked, because I've listened to it 100 times. It's not a ton of work. And I know we don't want to put this off, and it is a fact what they're saying. I mean, these things are ordered out, and I mean, they're out there. It takes time to get equipment. All the shops are in the same boat. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I just worry that $18,000 is way over what it should be. I mean, unless, I don't know, Tim said he's seen Goodman go a long time. He said there's nothing wrong with these brands. And I hope you don't mind me bringing that up. I mean, he's working with them for 15 years. And it was the equipment. Comfort Flow is the local, I mean, they basically are kind of the dealer of train carrier are definitely one of the brands in the industry. But again, they install all these others and they usually last every bit as long. So anyway, it's just something to think about. If we're really interested to keep going and do it, but I just didn't know if we would want to think about asking. I've got like 4 names of different, different companies. So it's just something I wanted to throw out there for consideration, but I do realize, it's going to take us probably a couple of weeks. Tim said Comfort Flow they tend to be more expensive, but they also typically do their full strength read. I don't know who chart of that is charged on or not. Anyway, I don't know. I'm wondering, Jeremy, if this is simple enough, if you just call them, talk to them on the phone, or if they really have to come over, I mean, everything is there except, and it's outlined and never said, they're not going to replace thermostat, they're just going to disconnect it. It tells you what they're not going to do there. And when you're putting in units, typically all that is in, is in what you're going to be doing. So this job is just not that big. And if I told you what these things go for, wholesale would be really because everything's marked up for them, but. So
here's what she's saying. I think that we would be wise. We need to check along with this, what the line that she's talking about. If we can have a planned meeting, Zoom meeting, whatever, to approve which way you want to go. We've had several of those so far, and we can get whether we stay with the 18 or if you find something that's more reasonable like that. I don't know how long you have to put it out to bid and stuff like that. I'm not sure the timetable for all that, but we could do a Zoom council. Go ahead.
well, I wonder if we even made some phone calls and just
Yeah, you don't have to put it up.
if we just made some phone calls and kind of described it, if they would be willing to say that sounds around, just to gather the information first, not to have them come out and bid it, but maybe gather the information. Or could you get enough information to say, yeah, it's probably not going to be that much different, so let's do it. Or, yeah, it's going to be $8,000 less, so we want to say that. And ask them how long they're out in getting their equipment. I mean, those are all important because we don't want this to go into January. I mean, that's why you didn't pick Goodman. Because.
Well,
it's
what
too
is the
far out.
time frame? Can you not operate with one?
That was another question. I didn't think to ask.
I asked that to both the contractor and the architect, and I didn't get a response back. I don't know do you know which one this is zoned to?
I do not.
Yeah, and I realize we can't, maybe that we can't open without it. I mean, we don't want to. So I just wanted to throw it out there.
But I think
guys,
we do need to look.
I was concerned that it was just a very, and I know we've got it, so that's great. So we're not trying to be a stick.
Yep.
And maybe Like I said, I talked to my son tonight.
Extremely
He
valid.
said, I feel like you guys are getting screwed. That's what he said. But, I mean, Harvey Price is a great company and they do good work, so that's not an issue. And everything's so expensive now, I'm like, fine. It's just that bad. So I have the names of some companies,
Okay.
if you want.
Send
So
it
obviously,
to me.
I'm not trying to sell them.
Send it to me by email.
Okay.
Does
So,
the city belong to Portland? Or
We do.
yes,
Did you check that?
I didn't check, like I
Because you don't
said,
have to call the bids. Because again, this isn't a special item, this is a.
And we do want a warranty, so. Tim said, I'd come do it really cheap, but then you wouldn't have a warranty.
Yeah.
He's not
No,
a
we faked out
contractor.
for that in the Grange once. Let's not do that.
Yeah, well, and
He's like, "Love it."
no, he worries about that.
Yeah.
Because that's it, and I said, yeah, we're the city, we can't spend our money that way, we've got to be careful.
so what we can do is try to get 2 more quotes by the end of the week and get a special meeting scheduled with you next week. I'm gonna be out Monday and Tuesday, if necessary, Mr. Baker here. And take care of it.
Then I'll email.
And I could look at the list too. I have, there's a couple local people also. And I just did the unit at my house.
I was gonna say. you
Took
will-
6 months. It was $8,500 per resident.
That's
I also noticed, so I also noticed, Jerry's amount, I guess he's got to oversee it, is that what we're paying him for?
Yes.
And would that be the case if we direct? So we would save a couple of bucks.
We would say the contract is,
Yeah. Is that what is this here? It's his markup?
yes, that's what that is.
Okay, yeah, so that would be the other thing we'd say if that's, I mean, that's why it's 18,000 because obviously you can see the equipment, the party price, you paid 16. So hopefully it would save us. I just think it's worth the question. You can always come back to this.
Is anything else on that? That was number 6.
Sorry, Jeremy.
You're good. This is why I bring it to you.
I know, but we want to get things done.
All your asphalt.
The less we spend on that, the more we can spend on. other
Well, and
things
that's
that-
why, if it's even $5,000, yeah, it's-
Talk about the asphalt.
Sure. So what you have in front of you is a quote to do the crack sealing, seal coating, and some of the improvements to the parking lot. There's some identified in the project scope, some concrete improvements, some ADA improvements. And then just the general aesthetic of the plant of the parking lot. So originally this work was quoted by a sub for Bridgeway Contracting. They have overbooked themselves and will not be able to meet the deadline which we're trying to fit in. Actually, they won't be able to meet the deadline, from what I heard, until possibly late October. So the contractor reached out and I solicited some folks to do the work after talking with the architect and Jeremy. I think it's wise to do the whole parking lot. Don, you've been out there many times, you know it's in need of repair. So this is a quote from Boyer. They're a local company right here in Dexter. They did Bridgeway, Bridge Markets parking lot, which looks phenomenal. So this would include, well, you guys have the quote with you. So this is all the crack sealing, slurry seal on top, and then painting all the existing parking spots and then adding the ADA improvements. And then also a little bit of asphalt by the garage so that we can have a true ADA transition from the blacktop to the concrete. You only have one official quote in front of you because you look at the bottom there, the bid tabulation. AGS gave me a verbal quote over the phone. They were the contractor originally, the sub for Bridgeway Contracting. Their quote was 8,500 to 9,000. The quote given to me over the phone from Google Map image. They have been on site to bid the job originally when they turned in the project.
But as I just said, they are not able to get to the project in timeline. Not only that the contractor doesn't like it, doesn't fit with the city. Pave Northwest, I reached out to Pave Northwest. This is the most recent one on here. No response, never received a phone call back. Spoke to them on the phone in person. They were the ones that did the project at school. Yep. So I spoke to them. We were supposed to piggyback off the school at the same time. It would have been nice, kind of split the destination charge and mobilization. I think it turned into a little bit bigger of a job over there. And then also, I sent this to Jeremy last week. I also reached out, my neighbor, he recommended reaching out to Western Asphalt Repair. I left a voice message with their lead guy and I still have not heard back. So this was the only quote, official quote we received. And yeah, I would ask one thing, expenditure 7,400. I spoke with Kurt. And I might not have outlined the exact ADA stuff exactly, so maybe if we could just make it even 8,000 for the painting. ADA stuff has special regulations that the rest of the parking lot does not. I feel pretty confident about this quote. I still want to have to come back to you guys for $500 if we added additional hash marks by the garage or something. But any questions?
And then this will get added on to the project.
It is, it's included in that number that I showed you just a moment ago.
Well, that's what I was doing.
Okay. You want to look at it again?
Or you can email.
Well, let me just show you. I got it. Right there, 7,400,
Yeah.
direct contract. Oh, right there.
So just, yeah, another 8.
Yeah, if you guys are comfortable with that. So like I said, I feel confident about the quote, but I spoke with Kurt over the phone and I met him in person after I met the contractor, just to make sure that what he had on paper, you know, the project that was identified with the contract was very small, just the part in front of the garage there, right? Did not include the rest of the parking lot by any means, no crack sealing, no nothing. It was just the ADA improvements and transition from the blacktop to the concrete. So this encompasses the entire parking lot. And they have time open on their schedule, which is another good thing. They just finished the job up in bid, so.
So it's gonna be planned as Ridgeway finishes up the thing and they'll go in there and do that.
It would be, they'll need, just like the store there, they'll need a full day, you know, prep it, do the work, and then people will stay off of it. Yeah, so it'd be full communication, obviously, before we move in. Yeah,
We have a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal with asphalt, in the amount of 8,000 for asphalt coating and sealing and patching. Up to.
That's what you said.
Second.
We have a second. I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, we do have a second. 20 seconds. Okay, the motion is to approve a proposal with Collier Asphalt in the amount not to exceed $8,000 for an asphalt coating, sealing, patching, and striping. Questions, discussions, thoughts? I think it'll look good. All those in favor of motion to approve the proposal with Collier Asphalt in the amount not to exceed $8,000 for asphalt coating, sealing, patching, and striping, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Good to go. Next up, agreement for law enforcement services with Oak Ridge, page 232, if you're moving on.
I'm asking for approval tonight for contract renewal with the city of Oak Ridge for our law enforcement services. This is the annual contract. The base cost went up about $1,700. There may be additional increases depending on how much time they bill us for their attendance in municipal court. This is the same contract as we've had for our previous contract.
I'm not ready to do anything else, so there's much to.
10%, please. still we can't afford the options.
I make a motion to approve the agreement with law enforcement services.
I second.
Need a motion, Gail second, and motion to approve the agreement for law enforcement services with the city of Oak Ridge, authorize the administrator to sign. Further discussion?
Yeah, I got some. Every year, this contract being increased. A certain percent. But nothing changes as far as their visibility here in town, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's all of the all I got.
Anything else? All those in favor of motion to approve the agreement for law enforcement services with the city of Oak Ridge and authorize the city administrator to sign, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Now let's go water fund. Number 8, 237.
Okay, items 8 and 9 are grants with Business Oregon. Number 8 is for the water facilities plan, which you just heard tonight. Number 9 is for the wastewater facilities plan. The contracts look the same, it's just projects are different. Each one is for $20,000 to offset the costs that we have incurred to prepare the plans. The water master plan is being paid for out of the water SDC fund, and the sewer master plan is being paid for out of the sewer SDC fund. We've already spent most of the costs on the water master plan, so this $20,000 will allow us to reimburse ourselves up to the amount of the grant that we received.
We make a consolidated motion, everything.
And that's what I was just gonna ask. the same thing if we wanted to.
Take a single motion for 8 and 9.
Do it.
Right, thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve, let's see, both water fund and
So just say items 8 and 9 under new business.
okay. I make a motion to approve items 8 and 9 under new business.
We have a motion by Gail, second by Lorraine. To approve items 8 and 9 on the agenda. Questions? Discussion? All those in favor of approving items 8 and 9 on tonight's agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Other business, anybody?
I have one other thing.
Okay.
Appropriate, since we talked about the master plans a little bit quick. We did have a AC asbestos concrete main break this week, Saturday morning. It's the first time we've had an issue with the city main since I've worked here in 8 years. Usually it's a service lateral or something else. It's a pretty significant leak, pretty good size. D Street. Council Strauss isn't here tonight, but made him aware of it, and I came to you guys since 2014 about D Street. So we only have 2 service laterals that haven't been redone since I've been here. But it looks like it's getting to the point where maybe it's starting to affect the main, the age. Like I said, it is 60-something-year-old main. So I'm gonna work with the engineer and see if we have some other options. Go forward there, maybe look at some grant opportunities, but just to keep you guys in the loop, it's a pretty good sized leak, got it fixed.
We got it fixed.
Got it fixed. Got it stopped. It's not fixed. It's stopped. Yes. We
How
got
long did
stopped.
it run?
So we're guessing it happened at about 4 in the morning. So the Trent's craft came down. Then actually a citizen called about 4 houses down, said he had water in his backyard.
And went, woo-hoo, I struck gold.
Pretty much thought he had a spring.
Screw oil now, it's like water.
Yeah. How can I sell this?
Oh, yeah.
Resell this in water.
Any public comments before we close? In that case, any other comment from the council, anything? Okay, then we're adjourned at 9:20.